how was I to convey the robotics of a machine and the humanity of a man at the same time?
RoboCop wasn't just a sci-fi action movie. It was a battlefield of melting armor, real weapons, and behind-the-scenes disasters the studio never wanted you to hear about. From a set so dangerous that the lead actor was losing pounds of body weight just by standing still, to a shocking prop choice that risked government involvement, this movie's production was as explosive as the story on screen. While we'll count down all 20 and start with some of the wildest, nothing, and I mean nothing, tops what's waiting at number 1, where a real piece of military tech almost shut the whole movie down before it could even be released. So, why wait any longer? Let's dive right in. Fact number 20. The RoboCop suit was a personal furnace that nearly killed the lead actor. Peter Weller's RoboCop armor might have looked like the ultimate upgrade, but inside, it was a slow-cooking death trap. Built from layers of fiberglass, foam and rubber, the suit trapped so much heat that Weller was shedding up to 3 pounds of water weight a day just from sweating. Crew members described the inside smell as a sauna mixed with burnt plastic. The problem wasn't just the heat. The armor restricted movement so badly that Weller had to completely relearn how to walk, turn, and even aim a gun without looking ridiculous. At one point, filming had to pause so they could retrofit a tiny portable air conditioner into the suit between takes, just to keep him conscious. And that's not even the most extreme danger Weller faced on set, because in the next fact, we get into a stunt so risky it left the crew convinced they'd just filmed his last day alive. Fact number 19. A live explosion nearly ended RoboCop for real. During one of the action sequences, Peter Weller was supposed to walk away from a controlled detonation, the kind Hollywood plans down to the millisecond. But this time, the timing was off. The blast went off so close that Weller's suit was pelted with real debris, and the shockwave knocked him off balance mid-scene. Because his visor severely limited his vision, Weller didn't see half the flying rubble coming. The crew later admitted they'd miscalculated the blast radius, meaning that if the suit hadn't been reinforced with fiberglass, shards could have ripped right through. You can still spot his stumble in the final cut, a genuine reaction to almost being caught in the blast. And speaking of moments that made it to the final cut, the next fact is about a death scene so intense, the MPAA demanded multiple edits before it could even make it to theatres. Fact number 18. The MPAA forced RoboCop to tone down its most brutal death. When RoboCop delivers justice to crime, boss Clarence Bodica, the original cut was far more gruesome than what audiences saw in theatres. Paul Verhoeven shot the scene with extended blood sprays, multiple gunshot angles, and a lingering close-up of the final hit. The MPAA flagged it immediately, warning Orion Pictures that without cuts, the movie would get an X rating, a death sentence for box office sales. Verhoeven trimmed the shots, but left just enough brutality to keep the impact, and fans who've seen the uncut version on special releases say it's still one of the most shocking scenes ever filmed in a studio action movie. Fact number 17. RoboCop's walk came from a mime coach. That iconic mechanical RoboCop walk wasn't something Peter Weller just came up with. Orion Pictures actually hired Moni Yakim, a professional mime coach, to teach him how to move like a machine while still looking human underneath. Yakim studied the suit's restrictions and choreographed every step, turn and head tilt so that RoboCop's movements felt deliberate, calculated and slightly eerie. Weller spent weeks rehearsing these moves before filming, but once the suit arrived, the reality hit. It was heavier and more awkward than expected. That's why the early scenes feel stiffer, while later ones flow more naturally as Weller adapted Yakim's choreography to the real thing. But here's the twist. The most famous RoboCop movement of all wasn't planned at all. It happened completely by accident, and the crew decided to keep it. Fact number 16. The most famous RoboCop turn was a total accident. One of RoboCop's signature moves, the slow, deliberate head turn before drawing his gun, wasn't in the script or Yakim's movement plan. During a take, Weller's visor fogged up so badly he had to turn his head slowly just to see where he was aiming. The motion looked so cool on camera that Verhoeven told him to keep doing it in every scene. It became an unintentional trademark, adding to RoboCop's intimidating, almost predatory presence. Proof that sometimes the most memorable moments are born out of pure necessity. Fact number 15. ED209's roar came from an unlikely animal. The terrifying sound of ED209 wasn't a mechanical effect at all. It was taken from a real-life black leopard's growl, mixed with the sounds of a grizzly bear and slowed to make it deeper. Sound designer Stephen Flick wanted the robot to feel like a predator that could stalk you, not just a piece of hardware. To get the right tone, they recorded the leopard in a zoo enclosure at night, capturing the echo and raw aggression in its call. The sound was then layered with distorted pig squeals and electronic hums to give ED209 its inhuman yet organic menace. And as wild as that is, the real nightmare came when the ED209 prop malfunctioned in the middle of filming and nearly crushed someone on set. Fact number 14. The ED209 prop malfunctioned and almost injured a crew member. The life-sized ED209 used for close-up shots was a massive motorized prop weighing hundreds of pounds. During one setup, its leg hydraulics jammed mid-movement, causing the whole rig to jerk forward unexpectedly. A camera operator standing in its path had to dive out of the way to avoid being hit. The crew quickly realised that ED209 wasn't just dangerous in the movie, it was a legitimate hazard on set. From then on, they positioned extra spotters whenever the full-size prop was in motion, just in case it decided to go rogue again. Fact number 13. The Boardroom death scene used a grotesque practical effect. When ED209 malfunctions in the boardroom and obliterates an OCP executive, what you're seeing isn't just makeup. It's a fully detailed prosthetic head packed with fake organs, squibs, and even fibre optic tubes to simulate bursts of blood. The head was moulded directly from the actor's face, then mounted on a collapsible frame so it could cave in when the squibs went off. The effect was so convincing that some test audience members thought it was a real accident caught on camera. That reaction was exactly what Verhoeven wanted. He believed over-the-top violence should feel absurd, but still hit hard enough to shock. But as graphic as that was, the scene originally went even further, and the MPAA had something to say about it. Fact number 12. The MPAA forced multiple cuts to the boardroom scene. In the original cut, ED209 kept firing long after the executive had fallen, shredding the prosthetic body into an unrecognisable mess. Verhoeven wanted the absurdity to go on so long it became darkly funny, but the MPAA disagreed. They warned Orion Pictures the scene would earn an X rating unless it was shortened dramatically. The final theatrical version still shocked audiences, but it was toned down compared to the uncut home video release, where the extra gore turns the malfunction into one of the most excessive death scenes in 80s action cinema. Fact number 11. RoboCop was mostly filmed in Dallas, not Detroit. Although RoboCop's story is set in a gritty, crime-ridden Detroit, very little of the movie was actually shot there. Most of the filming took place in Dallas, Texas, whose futuristic skyscrapers and cleaner streets gave the perfect contrast to the film's dystopian tone. Only the aerial opening shot of Detroit is authentic. The rest is pure movie magic. This decision wasn't just about looks. Detroit in the late 80s had high crime rates and unpredictable filming conditions, which could have made the already chaotic shoot even more dangerous. Dallas provided more control, more space, and fewer security concerns for the massive stunts and explosions. But even with a safer setting, one outdoor shoot caused such a realistic panic that locals actually called the police, thinking a major disaster was unfolding in real time. Fact number 10. A gas station explosion triggered real 911 calls. One of RoboCop's most memorable moments, the gas station shootout, looked so real that people living nearby thought it was an actual emergency. The explosion's fireball lit up the night sky, and the sound carried for blocks. Locals who had no idea a movie was being filmed flooded emergency lines, reporting what they thought was a terrorist attack or major accident. Police had to reassure callers that the fire was controlled and part of a film shoot. Ironically, that authenticity is exactly what made the scene stand out on screen, but it also nearly brought real first responders storming in mid-take. Fact number 9. RoboCop's gun was custom built to look too big to be real. The iconic Auto 9 pistol wasn't something you could just buy off the shelf. It was a heavily modified Beretta 93R, extended and fitted with an oversized barrel, heat shield, and a custom flash suppressor to give it a futuristic, almost cartoonishly large silhouette. The goal was to make the gun look like it could only be wielded by someone as strong as RoboCop. The size wasn't just for show. The flash suppressor helped create those huge muzzle flashes without blinding Peter Weller in the visor. Every firing scene was carefully choreographed to avoid shell casings bouncing into the narrow gaps of the suit, which could have caused burns or even sparked a fire inside the costume. And speaking of fire, the next fact dives into a stunt that actually did set part of RoboCop's suit ablaze, and it wasn't supposed to happen. Fact number 8. A stunt set RoboCop's suit on fire. During one explosive action sequence, a burst of flame from a practical effect licked across Peter Weller's arm, and the heat-resistant layer under the RoboCop suit caught fire. Thankfully, the fiberglass exterior slowed the burn long enough for crew members to douse it before it spread. The incident was a wake-up call for the effects team, who reinforced the suit with additional fireproof padding afterward. Ironically, the scorched section never appears in the film, but it became a running joke on set that RoboCop had survived his first boss battle. Fact number 7. The RoboCop suit took 11 hours to put on for the first time. When the costume first arrived from the effects workshop, it wasn't exactly user-friendly. The crew underestimated just how complex the suit's multiple layers, joints and fittings would be. And it took a staggering 11 hours to get Peter Weller fully suited up for the very first test. Every piece had to be custom aligned so the joints wouldn't lock up during movement. Once inside, Weller could barely sit, bend, or even scratch his face without assistance. After that initial nightmare, the team managed to trim the process down to about 90 minutes. But even then, it was grueling for everyone involved. And the craziest part? That grueling process nearly made Weller quit the movie entirely. Which brings us to a behind-the-scenes fight that almost forced the studio to recast RoboCop mid-shoot. Fact number 6. Peter Weller almost quit over the suit. After weeks of shooting in sweltering heat, battling exhaustion, and struggling to perform even basic movements inside the RoboCop armor, Peter Weller reached his breaking point. He told director Paul Verhoeven he couldn't physically keep going, even considering walking away from the role entirely. To keep him on board, production brought in cooling fans, restructured the shooting schedule, and gave Weller additional breaks between takes. The changes worked, and the movie kept its star. But it was a close call that could have completely changed RoboCop as we know it. Fact number 5. RoboCop's voice was re-recorded after filming. If you listen closely, RoboCop's voice in the final film has a slightly metallic processed edge. That wasn't something they captured on set. Peter Weller recorded all his dialogue again in post-production, matching his lines to his on-screen lip movements, while sound engineers layered in effects to make him sound more mechanical. The decision wasn't just technical. Verhoeven wanted RoboCop's voice to feel colder, more detached, as if the humanity in Alex Murphy was buried under layers of programming. The subtle echo and tone shifts gave the character that uncanny, almost unsettling presence that made him so memorable. But while the voice was added later, there's one sound effect in RoboCop that was captured live, and it came from something you'd never expect to hear on a movie set. Fact number 4. RoboCop's footsteps were recorded live on set. That heavy, metallic stomp you hear every time RoboCop takes a step wasn't just an audio trick added in post. Many of them were recorded live using hidden microphones. The sound team strapped small mics near Weller's boots, so when he walked across metal plates or concrete, the real clank and echo came through. These recordings were later mixed with deeper, bass-heavy thuds to make RoboCop's presence feel even more intimidating. The result was a sound that felt authentic because, in many cases, it actually was. Fact number 3. The cocaine factory shootout was a nightmare to film. The chaotic scene in which RoboCop storms a drug lab looks like it was pure fun for the stunt team, but behind the scenes, it was one of the most stressful sequences of the shoot. With dozens of squibs, breakaway glass, and stunt performers firing blanks in close quarters, the margin for error was razor thin. To make things worse, the heat from the blank rounds kept igniting small piles of powder, used for the cocaine, which was actually a non-toxic stand-in. The crew had to pause multiple times to snuff out flames before they spread. Even the cameras weren't safe. One lens was destroyed when a squib exploded too close to it. And yet, the real danger on set didn't come from fake drugs or blanks. It came from a single prop so authentic, it caught the attention of law enforcement. Fact number 2. One prop gun was so real it got the ATF's attention. Most of RoboCop's firearms were modified movie props, but one weapon slipped through with almost no changes from its real-world counterpart. When federal firearms officials learned a fully functional machine gun was being used on set, they reportedly paid the production a visit to confirm it was being handled under strict safety protocols. The weapon was immediately placed under lock and key when not in use, and only the most experienced armourers were allowed to load or fire it during takes. The incident underscored just how far the filmmakers went for authenticity, and set the stage for the ultimate behind-the-scenes twist at number 1. Fact number 1. RoboCop was almost shut down over a real-life corporate lawsuit. Midway through production, Orion Pictures received a legal threat from a major automotive corporation that claimed RoboCop's design and premise were damaging to their brand image. The company's lawyers argued that the film portrayed futuristic law enforcement as corrupt and overly violent, a narrative they feared would indirectly tarnish their public reputation. For a few tense weeks, there was genuine concern the movie might be scrapped entirely, with sets dismantled and millions lost. The legal battle was only resolved after the studio agreed to minor script tweaks and subtle costume adjustments that distanced RoboCop's armour from the company's proprietary designs. Had the lawsuit succeeded, RoboCop might have been remembered as one of the greatest sci-fi films never made, and we'd never have seen the half-man, half-machine legend patrol the streets of Detroit. If you loved diving into these hidden details, hit that like button. It tells us you want more deep dives like this. And if you think you've heard every weird fact about your favourite films, trust me, we've got plenty more that will prove you wrong. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next breakdown, because the next one might just change the way you see a classic forever.